What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to show you how you can make an enemy damage effect. So when you hit the zombie, it goes white and then it kind of fades back into the color. So you can see, like, when you hit them, they don't just like go flash white and then flash immediately back to green. It changes white and then it slowly goes back to green. I'm also, after I'm done showing you that effect, I'm going to show you how you can do this knockback effect. And then also when they hit each other, you can see that they're bouncing off each other. This entire project is going to be available for download in the description of the video for free. So you're welcome to download it and use it however you want to. I also made this kind of fiery explosion effect. I'm not done that yet, but that's also, we're going to cover that too, what I made so far. So if you guys enjoyed the series so far, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, so the first things first, here in the script, if you are just following this and you just want to add this effect to your game and you don't care how it works, all you have to do is this script will also be available in the description of the video. You can download it separate from the project. So if you don't want to download the entire project, you could just download this script. To use it, all you have to do is at the top of your class, like your enemy class, you can make it inherit from enemy damage script. So in my case, my zombie script is inheriting from unit, and the unit script is inheriting from enemy damage script. But in your game, you probably won't have this unit script, so your enemy script will have to inherit from the enemy damage script. And then all you have to do is call this trigger material change, and then this will automatically do it. So the way that this kind of works is that it goes through all of the, oh, I don't have it enabled anymore. Oh shit, my game crashed. It goes through all the materials inside the game object. So like in my case, these robots, there is several objects inside of the robot that have materials on them. So like if you go into the armature, there's the arm. This arm's 001. This has 3 materials on it. And the right arm has 3 materials. And the body has 6 materials, etc. Right? The way that it works is if you have, it will go through all the materials, including all the sub objects of the object that it's attached to, and it will flash all of the materials. This only works on materials that have a color. So for example, in my outline script right now, for example, this outline mask, this is a mask. It doesn't have the color property. So I have added something in which checks each material if it has the color, and if it doesn't, it adds just the color black instead. So that way it doesn't affect this, because it has to memorize the order for it to work. So all you have to do is make your enemy inherit from the enemy damage script, and then it will just automatically work. So if that's all you came for, you could just download the script. Yeah, hopefully I'll see you in the next video or something. If you're interested in how it's working, I'm going to explain that now. All right, so when you have a base class, if you use protected virtual void start, that means that this start method will run and any other start methods that are set up will run. So both of these start methods will run. The base class start method will run first, and then the unit one will run afterwards. So what we're doing in this start method is we're taking all of the materials off of all of the objects that are inside of the object. So get components and children gets all of the components inside of all of the children, including the sub children of the object. So we're getting all of the components attached to the object with the mesh renderer, and we're getting the materials inside of it. So we need the materials because that's where we can update the colors, and each of the objects has an array of materials. So if you look at this arms 001, you can see there's 3 materials attached to the mesh renderer. So each of the objects has an array of materials, and this will make this work on anything. And then the list of colors, like the array of colors, these are the colors that they're starting at. So like zombie eyes, for example, this one is starting as like a light green. We're saving that light green material into this array so that after we change it to white, we have the color that we can change it back to. So that's what this start method is doing. Trigger material change. This is what we call when we want to actually damage the zombie. If you recall from the previous videos, we set up this spell script. Spell gets attached to the attack that the player does. Okay, so if we open up the player attack class, I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place here. Let me just bring this over here. So when we press left click and we're idling, it will change the player state to attacking, which will do this animation. The animation has this attached to it. So as at one of the frames in the middle of the attack, this will happen as part of one of the frames. This instantiates a player attack, which is a prefab, which has the spell class attached to it. So this class is attached to the little ball that comes out of the character when he attacks. And so what it will do is when it collides with anything, it will play the attack explosion. So when it collides with something, it will play the explosion. And then it will try to see if the thing that we hit has the unit script attached to it, because our enemies are units, right? So this our zombie script inherits from unit, which makes it a unit. So when we have the spell hit the unit, we're trying to get this. So the reason we're using a try get component is because if it hits something that doesn't have the unit class attached to it, this will skip it, right? So this part of the code won't happen if it hits something that's not a unit. And then we're calling this trigger material change, which actually does the flashing. So if we look at the code here, the first thing we're doing is we're stopping the change coroutine. So because if you hit the zombie and he's currently in the process of converting back from the white color to the normal color, we have to stop that coroutine or else it's going to continue going. And then the two coroutines will be competing with each other to change the colors. So like, for example, when you hit the zombie, he goes white immediately. Well, if he's still white and that coroutine is still running, we have to stop that coroutine before we start changing the material again. So we're stopping these coroutines. There's two of them. And then we're starting the change material thing again. So change materials temporarily runs this change materials to color. So this will immediately change the colors all to the white color or whatever color you want. Yeah, it goes through all of the mesh renderers and it changes the color. Okay, so change materials to color. There's the color as the input. This is where you can set it to white or whatever color you want. So change materials temporarily. 222 is, in this color class, 111 is white. So usually the way the colors work, it's red, green, blue. It's 255 is the max, 255 is the max, 255 is the max for white, right? But in Unity, this is actually a percentage. So if you put 1 here, it will be fully white. Putting 2 actually makes it glow. So anything over the number 1 shows up as an emission. So this will be a brighter shade of white. If you just want it to be normal white where it's not as bright, you could type 1s in here. And if you want to change the color, you just have to put this in here. So you would find the, like, let's say you wanted to make this 100, 100, 100. You would have to do 100 divided by 255 in each of these slots to do that. So this isn't really a lesson on how colors work in Unity. You could just go look up the documentation, but this is white, okay? So we're changing the material to the color white, and then this actually changes the color to white immediately. And then we wait 0.2 seconds, and then we start reverting the color back to the original list of colors. So if we go to the revert material smoothly, we're getting all the components in the mesh renderer, and then we're going through our list of colors, and we're slowly gonna lerp between the two colors. So we're lerping from white, which this actually shouldn't be white. This should be the color, the same color. Probably we should save that in a variable. I'm not gonna do it right now, but it should be lerping from the color that you chose to the original color based on the time. And the time is based on the duration. So it's your lap time divided by the duration. So over time, the color will be a color between this max color and the original color based on the float t, which is the lapse time divided by the duration. So I hope that makes sense. And now I'm just going to go over some of the other stuff that we're doing as part of this. So when we hit the zombie, if so we lower the health of the zombie by the damage. So that being said, I added health to the unit script. This defaults to 3. If you don't want it to be 3, you can set it in the start method of the zombie. So you can overwrite it here in the start method. You could create a start method here, or you could set it inside of the inspector. So if you click on one of these robots, you could see on the right, there's the zombie script. Because we made this public, okay, I've set the health to 4. So these zombies have 4 health, not 3. Okay, so you can change it here. And because you save your enemy as a prefab, this is probably the best way to do it because you're just dragging your prefab into the game. You'll not be creating a new, you're not going to have to set up all these settings every single time. Yeah, you just change it to 4 there. So the zombie has 4 health. And when we hit the zombie, the health subtracts the player's damage. So the player is a static class where we've saved all of the settings for the player. I've added a variable for the player's damage. This will obviously be affected by what weapons the player picks up and what items they pick up and all this stuff throughout the game where it changes the player's stats. So his damage starts at 1, so that will take 4 hits to kill the zombie, but his damage can be anything. So if we go back to the spell script, if the unit's health is less than or equal to 0, we are going to instantiate this effect that I've made. Okay, so this enemy death effect, that was like that little white blob that appeared when the zombie died. So let me show you that. So enemy death effect is just, let me just put it here and we'll press play. So it's just this, right? So the enemy death effect, let me double click on it and you can see the visual effect graph. Again, this will be part of the project that's uploaded to the description of the video. I went in Blender and I made a sphere, but I cut out part of it. Let me just see if I can find it. Hang on. Oh, I didn't even save it. But yeah, I just went in Blender and I created a round cube and then I changed it into a quad sphere. And then I went into edit mode and I took part of it and I just deleted it like this or something like this. And then I took proportional editing tool and I just moved it around a bit so it's not so perfect. That's all I did to make this. Again, you'll be able to download this as part of the project from the description of the video, but that's all that is. And then I just have like some basic settings. So when it starts, it spawns 100 of these little circles. And we're setting the angle to be a random number between 0 and 360 degrees. I missed when I was dragging it. You could just make 360 if you're trying to do this. Again, I would just copy the project if you're going to be doing this anyway. And we're setting the position to a sphere. And then we're using the position to move the particles in the outwards way. So let me open Paint because I know you guys love my drawings. So if you set the particles to a sphere, let's picture this as a sphere, okay? This is 3D, it's not 2D. The position is a number that's based on the origin, which is directly in the middle of the sphere. So if there's a point here, for example, the position would be this direction. So when you set the velocity based on the position, it will go outwards like it's a burst of particles. And then I have this being multiplied by a vector 3, which allows me to control the speed at which the particles go. So if I press save on this, you'll be able to see it. Let's say I added like, I don't know, like a 0 at the end here. Oh my goodness. You would see that the y-axis would go crazy, like it will go flying upwards. So you can change this to whatever you want, right? I just have them going out in an actual sphere, but if you want it to blow up more or to go wider, you could just change these numbers. And then we're setting the lifetime to be random for each of the particles so they dissolve at different times. We're adding gravity so they actually fall towards the ground. I don't know if you can see that, but these particles actually go downwards. You could add more gravity if you want to, maybe just like 15. So it's kind of like their blood and stuff is falling towards the ground, but it's not blood. It's just white because I'm trying to make it more gamey. I've been working on making the game more gamey, if that makes any sense. And then we're multiplying the size over life. So it starts out very small, becomes really big really fast, and then it goes back to really small. When you add this size over life node, it starts in overwrite mode. You have to change it to multiply. If you don't, this won't have, like, it will just be super small and you won't be able to see it. And then I'm setting the color over life so it starts at full visibility, and then over time, the alpha becomes reduced until it's 0. So this gives it like the fading effect. So that's the death effect. I'm just going to dock that at the top here. Again, I would recommend downloading the project because I made a bunch of changes to make this work. And then if the enemy count, so we lower the enemy count because this enemy is dead if it has less than 0 health, right? Less than or equal to 0 health means the enemy is dead. We disable the game object so that it's no longer visible after we played the enemy death effect, so you can't see the enemy anymore. And then if there's less than or equal 0 enemies in the room, this is the code that we wrote the other day. When we clicked on the square, it deleted the square and it opened the doors. This makes it so when you kill all 3 of the zombies, if there's no enemies in the room, it will open the door so you can leave. Yeah, I think that's it. So if the health is not less than or equal to 0, we apply force to the rigid body that's attached to the unit. And it's very similar to the force that we applied on the player in the last video. So it's using the enemy's position minus the player's position times the enemy knockback. So inside of our player class, I adjusted the enemy knockback to be 10. I don't know if I created this variable in a previous video, but yeah, this is how you can control how far the enemy will bounce when you hit him. So when you hit him, he goes flying backwards. You can change this number at any time. Putting all of your settings into a class makes it really easy for you to control all the settings. After you're done setting up your game, you could just have one class where you're just changing all those settings. And then if you make a settings screen later in the future, you can use it for that as well. Okay, and the other thing that I did inside of this is if you hit this, you have to turn hit player to true. This makes it so that when you hit the zombie, it will stop chasing the player so that this can happen. If it's following the pathing algorithm, like the A-star algorithm, it won't actually work because you add the force to it, but you're not pausing the movement. So the movement of the A-star algorithm will overwrite this knockback, and it changes the velocity to 0 as part of the script. So if it changes the velocity to 0, then this is based on velocity because we're using impulse. All right. And the very last thing that we did here is when our zombie collides with something, if it's the player, it does damage to the player and knocks him back. But if the collision is a robot, because our zombie is named robot.20, I'm probably going to change the name at some point, but that's what it's called right now. It's called Robot 2024. And then the date that I made it in Blender. If it hits another robot, it will do the same thing that it's doing when you hit it with a spell. So this is just a copy paste of the spell script. And then it will stop it from moving as well, so that it has a chance to bounce backwards. This makes it so that when they hit each other, they bounce off of each other. So that's what that is. And this should actually be, instead of starting a manage coroutine, this should just be start coroutine, because the zombie has to be alive for this coroutine to, I think we were getting an error at the bottom there before. So the zombie has to be alive for this to actually work. Otherwise, that when this goes to play, if it's in a manage coroutine, it won't exist anymore. But anyway, I think that covers everything. If you guys have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments of the video. I hope you guys are enjoying the series. If you are, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have anything that you want to learn in this style of game, or like anything at all, just leave it in the comments, or you could join my Discord. I think I'll have a link for that in the description of the video. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.